Welcome to Access Point. Access Point is a new on-demand business education tool being developed for use by small businesses across the District of Columbia. Access Point is brought to you by the DC Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, the DC Department of Small and Local Business Development, DSLBD, District Bridges, and the Rhode Island Avenue Main Street.
Hey everyone, welcome to Access Point. We are starting off a series kind of highlighting some of the business activities that are taking place here in Washington, DC with small businesses as we try to adjust and adapt to the new reality of a pandemic shutdown for small businesses, for businesses in general. And we thought, what better way to start a conversation about this challenging time than to speak directly with our guest. But first, I want to thank our sponsors, as always, the Department of Small and Local Business Development and the Department of Housing and Community Development. It is their grant dollars to us that allow us to not only produce this show, but to help businesses up and down the Rhode Island Avenue Main Street corridor and throughout the District of Columbia. We are proud to be partnered with DSLBD and DHCD to bring you these shows. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest today. She is Director Kristi Whitfield, the Director of the Department of Small and Local Business Development. Welcome, Director Whitfield, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Kyle. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So you've been a little busy. I've seen you all over the news and talking with us. No rest for the weary in this situation. How is everybody at DSLBD doing?
Well, thank you for asking, Kyle. You know, I think that we are doing as well as can be expected. DSLBD is on full telework, but we are staying in touch with telephone and online web conferences like you and I are talking right now. It's amazing that we can stay in touch, virtually. It's important to know that DSLBD is open for business. And I think that, we are doing as much as we can, remotely in these uncertain times. This has been, I think the word that we keep using is unprecedented, because it really is. We are in uncharted territory. And I think that, we are managing as best we can, which I think is what we are all doing, and I think what our small businesses are doing. We are working day in and day out to try and find the next best solution, working with partners like the Main Streets across the city to figure out how to do the next thing. And I think sometimes that is the only thing that we can really do. I want to say that in these uncertain times, which are hard and which are scary, there are resources and there are glimmering lights of hope, right? And I think that, one of the biggest things that we've been focusing on at DSLBD is making sure that people know that there is help out there. I think that there are a few things that we want people, I guess the first thing that I find myself saying again and again, and I said this, before this pandemic, and I think these things are deeply amplified by the pandemic, is that you are not alone. A lot of time our small businesses, they suffer in solitude. And I think that the pandemic in this regard has brought a lot of us together to say, like, this is a really hard time, but you are not alone. and you know your brothers and your sisters all have the same problems that you have, and we are all figuring things out. What happens when the mayor is forced by situations out of all of our control to say we've got to change the way that we do business, and we have got to keep our safety and paramount, and we've got to ask people to shut down their businesses. And the inspirational thing is that businesses have found different and interesting ways to do what they do, some of them. And Main Streets have found different and interesting ways to provide the services that they provide. The federal resources continue to be a source of commentary, and I think DSLBD has been working side by side with the SBA on some of those resources. The payroll protection program, the EDIL, the debt forgiveness. There's a bunch of things that are there now. Some of them hopefully temporarily paused, and hopefully some of them will turn back on. But there are other resources that continue with the SBA. And then there are resources that DSLBD has been able to, happily make available to the small businesses. Our robust retail was one of the first resources that this mayor was able to get onto the street. The robust retail funds closed on the 15th, and we were just really excited that the mayor and the deputy mayor augmented those funds, and 106 businesses got grants of $7,500 to help bridge some of these conversations. Now, we know that's not enough. We know that's not going to carry people over through this entire pandemic, but we hope that that is a help in these troubling times as people are talking to their lenders, talking to their credit cards, helping them make plans. And along the way, Rhode Island Avenue Main Street, Bladensburg Main Street, 8th Street Main Street, you all are doing a ton of really innovative, important things from a distance learning perspective to help people get the information that they need. And I think I want to really commend our main streets as being another, a beacon of light during these dark times to help the businesses get information from a distance learning perspective so that they can, if they can't be at their businesses, tune in and log on and get information that they can help contemplate what those next steps can be, whether it is figuring it out, how to renegotiate a lease with your landlord, how to consider your back office, how to, how to apply for loans. There's a lot of online resources that are being offered, from the main streets, from the government, from other partners out there. We had a session just today with partners from KPMG saying, hey, here's some online back office tools to help you get your back office together. So I think that there are a lot of resources out there. We're all trying to come together and cobble together resources that will help us answer the various questions about what does the economy look like in a recovery, in a post-COVID situation. And I think that with all of our voices together, we will build that story together.
That's thank you for mentioning the post-COVID way. So let's back up just a little bit for the timeline. I think the mayor's order went into effect. The mayor's shutdown order went into effect on March 20th, I believe, for all non-essential businesses, and we've all been in this for a while now. What did you see early on that businesses were going to need in the way of assistance from the DC government?
Well, I think, the thing people need early and then continuously is clear communication. And I want to say that I think this mayor has done an exemplary job of communicating as much information as we have. I think one of the toughest things in this environment is that we can't say with certainty where we are in this crisis. If a hurricane hits, it hits and then it's over. With this pandemic, we are watching data, and I think that Mayor Bowser has been so proactive in just trying to communicate as much as as she can, and Dr. Nesbitt from the Department of Health has been communicating. So I think step one, communication. Step two, proactive, asking for help. Mayor Bowser was the first mayor in the region to ask the federal government for resources, and Washington, D.C. was the first city in the region to ask the SBA for those federal resources. And while we know that the need exceeds the resources, we were happy to get our businesses, as far in the front of the line as we possibly could, because we knew that those resources were important for people to be able to try and access as quickly as possible. I think that the other thing that the government really needs to constantly do is ask, right? And so, I'm a member of the Open DC Advisory Committee on the subcommittee for retail and small business. And there are community members that are feeding information into this committee so that we know that as we are planning for a reopening, which we don't know exactly when that will happen, but when it does, that it will be informed by the voices of the people who are actually in the business community doing this, because we want to make sure that we are listening. And then I think the other piece that is really important is that we don't want to make sure that we are racing back to just restore a status quo as it was. Mayor Bowser has been really clear that we have an unprecedented opportunity to rebuild our city better than it was. And what does that mean? And we have to be really articulate about what that means. And when we talk about their sort of four tenets to that, hope, health, opportunity, prosperity, and equity. And what do those tenets mean for every aspect of our recovery? But if we look at our recovery, whether you're looking at education, whether you're looking at housing, whether you're looking at small business, whether you're looking at health, through those lenses, then I think we will absolutely be a better city when we can come back to whatever the next phase of life will be. I think that people talk about the new normal. I don't know if that's going to exist. I just think the next phase of what life is kind of how I'm thinking of it, because I know that our businesses are going to have to recontemplate everyday living. If we are no longer shaking hands, if we are no longer in a shared economy, we were able to Uber thoughtlessly, if we were getting in elevators thoughtlessly, if we were Airbnb without, not thoughtlessly, but that's without having second and third thoughts about it. I think there are a lot of things that we just have to give a lot of consideration to as we are wondering the safest ways to come back, and then very specifically for our small businesses. If your small business is going to be sustainable, you have to know how you're going to be economically viable. And if you're a food business that was reliant on a particular occupancy, and that occupancy was part of the contemplation of the value, the square footage value of the space, well, I think that that is all new now, isn't it? Right? Because of social distancing, you can't really pack your bar the same way. And so whatever that square footage value really has to be reconsidered. And how you engage in the type of business you do has to be reconsidered. And the types of trainings that we're contemplating with the Main Streets and with other partners like the Chambers and Think Local First and the Coalition for Nonprofit Housing. These are the conversations that we have to have because, particularly through an equity lens, can we have our small businesses in rents that contemplated a business model that is no longer relevant in the post-COVID or a post-COVID lifestyle? Like we have big questions to answer for our small businesses. That's a lot of talking, Kyle, I'm sorry, but we have a lot on our mind, and I think our small businesses have a lot on our mind.
Absolutely, and this is all interesting stuff. When I know that the mayor and the council have created the district economic recovery team, and one of their responsibilities is to look at that long term and see what kind of incremental reopening that the district can do. What are some of the steps that are being considered for both short, medium, and long term?
Well, I think the first, the DIRT, yes, the District Economic Recovery, the DIRT, which is a funny little acronym. The very first step is the safety of the population. And, and again, I feel deeply grateful and proud to work for a mayor where that is her first contemplation, right? I think that while our economy, is really in, a state of flux, our mayor has the right thing in the front of her mind. And we cannot do things that put the health of our population at harm. And the smartest research is telling us actually that the economy is going to be the strongest if we maintain our eyes on the prize of keeping the population safest. And so, we are looking at various sectors and the risk within those sectors, and then trying to merit out how to make suggestions about how to phase back opening in safe ways, right? And that's sort of the large question. Like, how could we begin a phased reentry? And that's the large approach in terms of how to get ourselves back, in the safest way possible, with the health of the people at the forefront, of our mind, and with science, driving those decisions.
So you mentioned the potential for having to look at a new scenario that for restaurants, for bars in particular, that aren't going to be able to have the same levels of in the door patronage as before, at least not for any time in the foreseeable future. But they all have leases that are based on square footage, and so there's expectations, as you mentioned, for revenue to cover those costs. Is there an answer to how to balance that out, or is that one of those things you're still working on that we all have to continue working on?
Well, let me say that we all have to work on this, right? I think we all have to work on this together, and I think that it has to come from both sides, right? And I think that's also a place where we are looking, we're looking from a bunch of angles on this, because we know that the market has changed, but we also, I think you and I know, Kyle, that entrepreneurs are just that. They're entrepreneurial, right? And so, we're seeing interesting pivots happening all around the city, and some of them we might be able to think of. But I will say, now I'm a former entrepreneur. I mean, I am not an entrepreneur anymore, I'm not sure. But if we're relying on government to solve it all, well then, we're ruined, right? Because I think that is not where all the innovation can come from. We have a smart government, and we have a caring government that cares about this. But the businesses are the smartest about how they can pivot and operate. And so if you think about interesting mashups, right, that we have seen around the city that government would have never contemplated. I would never have thought, hey, Labyrinth Games, why don't you do a mashup with Mr. Henry's down off the Eastern Market, and connect so you can do game and food delivery together. Like there are some innovations that the market, and entrepreneurs are going to come up with that the government is not going to mandate or legislate. But I do think that, it has to come from this is a solution that is going to have to come from 360 degrees. It's going to have to come from every angle, because people are going to have to think about how to change their business models. I think it is, I believe Compass Coffee, don't let me misspeak, but a few businesses, but Compass Coffee is also now doing a simple hand sanitizer. Cotton and Reed is doing hand sanitizer. Like, businesses are doing things they would never have been part of their business model, but that are not only helping them boost their sales, but are also serving the city in a way that is deeply impactful and needed. And so I think we know that our entrepreneurs are smart and dedicated and innovative. And so I think that, this is a real interesting opportunities for innovative ways. I will be sitting down and talking with the founder of Founding Farmers, who has transitioned their restaurant into groceries and deliveries, and they're delivering food to all 8 wards right now. I mean, and this is an innovation that I'm sure if you had said to them a year ago, would you ever have an interest in being a grocery delivery? They would have said, this is not what we do at all, right? So I think that we are seeing a time where the innovation that drove people to go into a business and to fill market niches is also kind of inspiring people to do things that they may have never imagined that they would have ever done, and that they're doing it in ways that have never been done before. I think that, I think we are seeing that all over the city.
So you've been a small business owner. You know how they think. If you had to give three key bits of wisdom to small business owners that they can do right now to help their own businesses, what would those 3 bits of information be? What was 3 bits of advice?
Well, get a true handle on your cash flow. And I think that that is the biggest and hardest and scariest one. You know, I've spoken to so many businesses out there, and I know when, you know, the sales are not coming in, and people have said beautiful and heartbreaking things to me. You know, I could never lay off my team because they're like family to me. This is something I keep hearing again and again. You've got to get a handle on your cash flow, because without that, you could find yourself in, you know, in a very bad, you know, an even worse predicament. And sort of number two, which is related to that, apply for everything. Apply for everything.
Everything. Could not agree with you more on that.
I mean, you just, so SBA, loans, grants, everything. You know, the mayor has a coronavirus.dc.gov, and we have resources and grants that are available. But, you know, I've had people say to me, I've been in business X number of years. You know, I've never had to apply. I've never had to ask for help. You know, and I think that that kind of speaks to maybe the third thing that is really important for me to say. Maybe this is the most important thing, which is find a way in this time to take care of yourself, because entrepreneurs seem to take care of everyone else. You take care of your business, you take care of your employees, you take care of your families, and you need to take care of yourself so that all those other people that rely on you can continue to rely on you. And these are really hard times right now. And so if you're not okay, those other people won't be okay. And so in a very sort of cliche, put your own air mask on first. It's like, if you're not breathing, then they won't be breathing, right? And I think that even if it's a walk, even if it is just a moment of peace, even if it is like a 5-minute meditation, just a moment, you know, give yourself a moment of peace, because you are usually the cornerstone of everything else. And so if you're not rested, then the rest of it can crumble. And so please, you know, take care of yourself. And you know, there is no harm or shame in asking for help. And there wasn't before, but I think even more now. If anything good has come out of this, and I think there have been some good things that have come out of this, but, you know, everyone needs help. Everyone's credit is shot. Everyone is struggling, and you are not alone. Everyone needs help, and please ask for and take help. And now, some people need, you know, or want, you know, you might not get the help that you want. You might not get the $90,000 grant. You might not get the $2 million loan, right? But I still think that even the emotional support of talking with your Main Street or a lender or someone else, so that we can start to build a path and see what help is available, is important as we build and create what the future is. Because sometimes the help that you think you wanted, even if that's not available, it helps you design what the future will be. And I think asking for that help is so important.
So you mentioned the mayor's website, the coronavirus information website, and that is dc.coronavirus.gov, dc.coronavirus.gov. Chock full of resources for small businesses, for residents. Is there there's some specific pages on there for small businesses? Is that right?
There's specific pages there for small business. There's specific things on there for unemployment. I mean, everything that people have, all of the resources for around coronavirus are linked up through that website. And so anything that you would have been able to find on an individual government agency's website is also linked on that one place, so that people don't have to fish through various and sundry websites of different government agencies. So we're asking everyone to go there first. And I think that is so that, for that exact reason, so that we know you have enough to do. You don't need to go to the DSLBD website and the DOES website and a million other websites. We want you to find everything at one place,
right,
easily.
Right.
I would say my website, DSLBD, is dslbd.dc.gov. But again, everything that we have for these types of resources can also be found, at the coronavirus. Thank you, God, the dc.coronavirus.gov. No, say it for me.
And you've mentioned DC Main Streets. We've got obviously listeners here in the DC area, but also listeners outside of the DC area. Would you give, for our listeners' benefit, a little synopsis of the DC Main Streets program?
Oh, sure. So the DC Main Streets are wonderful nonprofit organizations that work in our commercial corridors to help our local retailers, thrive and grow. Mayor Bowser has doubled the number of Main Streets during her tenure as mayor, and we now, I want to say, have 24 Main Streets in our district, and many of them are Main Street award winners. The Main Streets are the places where our retailers can go for training, technical assistance, some small grants, also really helping to highlight those corridors with different types of programming. So I know that the Rhode Island Avenue Main Street has Porch Fest, which is really fun, Kyle, and the Procrastinators Market. I'm shouting out your events, Kyle, because they're very fun. 8th Street Main Street has one of the biggest festivals of the city, the 8th Street Festival, which when I was a vendor, I used to make sure I could try and get all of my cupcake trucks into. But we have, and then one of the I think most, I would say, fun and important events of the city, Art All Night, which is put on in collaboration with the Commission of Arts and Humanities and the Office of Film, Cable, Television, and Entertainment. Art All Night, which brings together arts and culture and is fun. It's a big party, and that's really helps highlight our Main Streets. The Main Streets do all the work. They get very little of the credit, but they do all of the work, and we thank them for that. It's like the best government party that you never knew was a government party. That we, I think that also helps funnel people and commerce into our commercial corridors. But the Main Streets are really there, helping make sure that we amplify our commercial corridors and making a real difference in the lives of our small business owners.
And I'm going to give a plug for all of my Main Street colleagues here in DC about the shifting way that we are doing business. You mentioned some of the events. Porch Fest is one of our biggest events that we do every year, but the weekend weekend after the mayor announced the shutdown. Oh, excuse me, I guess it was 3 weekends after, was when our Porch Fest was scheduled. So we are actually planning now how to do Porch Fest virtually. So live music, but in a virtual Porch Fest scenario. I know some of my colleagues in other Main Street programs are having their annual meetings virtually. And I know there's been some discussion about Art All Night being a virtual event this year, all just dependent on where we are with the virus and the shutdowns. So I wanted to give a big shout out to my colleagues for all of their creativity as well. Do you see?
What's more, Kyle, I think is that as those events changed, I think the other thing, because you're being very humble, the other thing that Main Streets did when those situations changed is that the Main Streets also changed their budgets. And, I think we worked in close partnership with the Main Streets on this, and changed those budgets that would have been going to planning and coordinating and scheduling those events, and allocated those funds into grant funds for the businesses in those commercial corridors. We know that to date that has amounted to almost $750,000 of grant funds. Some of that was grant funding that was already in grant pots, but then a lot of that was refunneling of grant funds from program activities into the pockets of small businesses. When we knew we weren't going to be doing those funds, the Main Street director said, "What is the most appropriate use of these funds?" And it was a rallying cry of Main Streets behind their small businesses to say, "We know our small businesses need this money, and we're here for our small businesses." And it turned out to be hundreds of thousands, but in each quarter, tens of thousands of dollars, immediately into the pockets of the businesses that needed that money immediately. And it was a testament to, I think, the Main Streets knowing what their businesses need and responding to that cry quickly. So I want to thank the Main Street partners for that level of partnership.
Well, and we have to thank your leadership as well for making sure that we're allowed to shift and pivot the way we need to help the businesses. Pull out your crystal ball for just a minute, and this will be your wrap up question. Pull out your crystal ball for a minute, and make a prediction for where we are this time next year.
Okay, you know what? I think this time next year, we are looking back proudly at how we handled this time. That we are surprised. That we are surprised at the new way that we are doing some businesses, and that we are pleased. We're pleased at the ways in which we were able to model, locally, against our poor example federally. And we are celebrating a Democratic president.
Oh. All right. Well, we won't hold you. We won't hold you to anything on that, but fingers crossed, all the way around.
But I think that we will be bowed but not broken, and we will be chastened, and we will sort of rise again. is what we are gonna, I think we will be strengthened by our lessons, and I think we will be knit together is what I'm hoping for.
All right. We'll take that. We are going to be spending the next several episodes interviewing business owners from across the district, in as many as we can get on the microphone, talking about how they are adapting their business. I think it's going to be some good information that we'll be sharing, not only about the businesses themselves and telling their stories, but in really providing some learning opportunities for business owners that'll be listening, and may be able to pull a takeaway or two out of what they're hearing other businesses doing, and inspiring other businesses to reopen or to operate in a creative new way. And so thank you DSLBD for funding us to be able to put on this series, as well as the future small business education series that we're going to be doing. I think this is
thank you for doing it.
Yeah, I think this is an incredibly important time to make sure that businesses have access to all the tools that they need to survive and hopefully thrive in the days and months to come. So we're looking forward to this series. Thank you so much for joining us today to kick it off. And once again, this is Director Kristi Whitfield from the Department of Small and Local Business Development. Thank you for your time today, and we'll make sure that you're back for those predictions. Okay?
All right. I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, and thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of Access Point. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.